Let's begin with the quick recap of history. On April 15, 1912, the Titanic sank and 1,500 people lost their lives. Why? Not just because of the iceberg, but because of the missed message. The message which was conveyed to the Titanic hours before it was struck. But that message was never really conveyed to the Titanic's captain on time. Now fast forward to 2020 when COVID-19 pandemic hit the entire world. What happened? Those countries who had effective communication saved millions of lives, for instance, New Zealand. But those who denied and dismissed information cost human lives. That too, not one or two, but thousands of human lives. So, what's the point? The point is that communication is not only the skill to be learned, but the most powerful tool which has most powerful consequences as well. A soliciting hello to one and all connected with me through this video. Myself Deepa Joshi, BBA second semester student from Section A in the prominent college of PU affiliation, Amity College. And we are given the project work to speak up on one of the topic to best to our abilities. And this is the need of today's time as this is digitalized world. So I would like to thank our facilitator and respected subject teacher of soft skills practicum who gave us this skill flourishing task. And without further ado, let's begin. So what is communication? Well, if you smiled at someone today, that was communication. If you said a casual hi, that was communication. And even if you nervously avoided an eye contact, that was communication. Because silence, when felt deeply, communicates more than just words. Talking about formal definition, communication refers to the exchange of news, views, opinions, emotions, experience, or feelings between two or more parties. And just a minute before, we talked how influential communication is. So learning about its nature is important as well. So let's begin without further delay. The first one is that communication is goal-oriented and strategic. We all know that because no one speaks with someone without a purpose. Now you may feel like, oh no, I talk with her when I don't have a reason. But you have a reason. Maybe you want to spend some time with her or you want to hear her voice. But that's the reason as well. That's the purpose as well. So communication always has a goal. It is goal-oriented. And it is strategic as well because one needs communication skills to just communicate better or get something from someone. Let me give you an instant example. So in our lives, there are a lot of moments where we are in argument, right? But if you stay silent, even when you have a lot of things to say, or you just say, it's fine, then it is also a purposeful communication because you have purpose of resolving the future conflicts or the situational conflict. And the another one is that communication is irreversible process. Once a message is sent, it cannot be unheard or unfelt. It might get unsent by you, but the person sees it, hears it, and feels it. For instance, a hurtful message can be forgiven but never forgotten. Moving on to the next is that communication is a continuous process. Communication never really stops. Even when we are silent, our body language, facial expressions, and energy communicates. It flows constantly like a river through words, gestures, emotions, and even absence speaks for itself. Another one is verbal and non-verbal. Communication is not only about what we say, but how we say it. Our tone, gestures, emotions, eye contacts, and a lot of more non-verbal cues also lead to how our message is interpreted by another person. For instance, if I say you, thank you, what will you interpret from it? Of course, that I'm sweet and I'm thanking you. But if I say thank you, what will you assume? You will either assume me as a rude person, arrogant person, or a sarcastic person. But these all things depended on how I communicated those two words. For instance, when you are late for a class, you know everyone is looking at you and you feel ashamed. But your expression says that, I know I'm late. But you don't utter a word, and that is communication. Moving on to the next is pervasive nature. Communication happens everywhere, be it school, college, home, or even in the dreams, or even in the silence. Because communication is a lot more than the barriers of language, culture, feelings, or emotions. It goes beyond it. Communication is the constant background rhythm of life. For instance, even animals like dogs wagging their tails, cats purring is communication. So we can say that communication is pervasive in nature. And of course, communication is contextual because the way we talk with people highly depends upon the situation, relationship, environment, and culture. The way you talk with your friend may be different from the way you talk with your teacher. For instance, joking in a classroom which is very serious or in a lecture which is too important is considered to be rude or bad manners, but cracking the same joke in your friend group or during a casual conversation is fine. And another one is personal interpretation. The same message can be interpreted differently by different people based on their experiences, past histories, and emotions or their moods. For instance, if I say, you look good today, then you will feel happy if you are a confident person who is having a good time. But if I say the same, you look different today, to a person who is having a bad time or who lacks self confidence, then that person may assume it as a criticism and develop negative attitude towards me. And also, communication is symbolic in nature because it uses tone, gesture, eye contact, body language, and other cues for communication. For instance, in one culture, this sign represents peace, but in another culture, this sign may represent the number two. However, in both the cultures, it does represent something. So, yes, communication is symbolic as well. And also, communication is a learned skill because no one is born with perfect communication skills. We practice, experience, and learn throughout our life. And communication is not fixed. It keeps on changing with the change in technology, trends, or personal goals or growth. For instance, think about how we went from writing letters to then emails, then DM, voice note, and now memes to share our feelings. Isn't it evolving? Of course, yes. And another one is that communication is a transactional process. It involves two parties or more than that, but only sending or receival of information, news, views, opinions cannot be regarded as communication. Without feedback, the communication is incomplete. It is like shouting in the void. For example, if you are asking someone a question for last half an hour and he just nodding his head or feels like uninterested, then you feel disgusted, frustrated, and feel unheard. And this is ineffective communication. And learning about the nature of communication is not enough because we should know how to implement our learning. And to implement those in our day to day lives, effective communication, here are some key takeaways. The first one is active listening. Listen not just to reply, but to understand, to connect. And another one is clarity and conciseness. It means to say things in short, clear, and understandable language. Because many times, less is often more. And another one is empathy. It is the ability to understand your own as well as others' feelings. It is like stepping into their shoes And of course, it is very useful when you step into their shoes before responding or before saying something. To be adaptive, mindful, empathetic, and practice regularly. Communication is not only about speaking, it is the language of our souls. It can either break the nations or build the nations. We may forget what someone said to us, but we never forget how their words made us to feel. So speak not just to be heard, but to be understood. Listen not just to reply, but to connect, because in the end, we all are just their stories, longing to be held, longing to be told, and longing to be heard. And with this, our session comes to an end. And if you have any queries or feedback, please do leave them in the comment section below. And do like, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much for being patiently with me throughout the video. Have a wonderful time ahead.